Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the WHSmith Zoella Book Club. As most of you will know, Zoella is a really popular YouTuber, and last year she collaborated with WHSmith where she chose 8 books that she really liked to read and shared them with us. We had Twitter takeover nights where we'd get to ask the authors questions. We'd also have book club nights where we could discuss the book amongst ourselves, and then at the end we had a vote to decide which one was our favourite book. Then, I think it was back in October, Zoella did a second round of the book club with WHSmith. She chose 8 new books to share with us all, and I was lucky enough to be sent all 8 of them, so thank you very much for those. Today I just thought I would talk to you a little bit about all 8 of them, tell you what I liked and what I thought of them. So yeah, let's just get started with the first book. The first book I'm going to talk to you about is If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. Hopefully you can see the cover of this because these are all exclusive covers to WHSmith. This one is actually a metallic silver, so I'm hoping you can see it and that the light isn't shining on it too much because it is a really beautiful cover. First of all, I'm going to read the back to you just so you know what it's about. Amanda Hardy is the new girl at school. Like everyone else, all she wants is to make friends and fit in. But Amanda is holding back, even from Grant, the guy she's falling in love with. Amanda has a secret. At her old school, she used to be called Andrew, and secrets always have a way of getting out. I absolutely loved this book. It was so different to anything else that I'd read before. Amanda goes to stay with her dad after having troubles where she previously lived with her mum, and she starts a new school as Amanda and meets Grant, who she falls in love with. There's a brilliant character called Bee in this who I found hilarious. She has some of the best lines in the book. Obviously it's not plain sailing for Amanda, there are some issues in here that she has to work through, but I absolutely adored the whole book. I really struggled to put this one down. It was like when I would be making dinner and I'd be trying to read a couple of pages in between doing bits and pieces in the house. So I absolutely loved this book. I would really recommend it. I gave it 5 stars. If you want to read any of the questions and answers that I asked any of the authors, I will leave the link in the description box below because I posted them on my blog. But for now, this was a really good book and I highly recommend it. The next book I read for the book club was Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell. I absolutely hate horror films, so I really didn't think I was going to enjoy a horror book, but it was around the time of Halloween and I just thought I'll get the full experience of it and I will read it anyway. Plus I wanted to read all 8 books, I didn't want to miss any out. Again, I will read the back for you to tell you a little bit more about it. Dunvegan School for Girls has been closed for many years. Converted into a family home, the teachers and students are long gone, but they left something behind. Sophie arrives at the old schoolhouse to spend the summer with her cousins. Brooding Cameron with his scarred hand, strange Lilas with her fear of bones, and Piper who seems too good to be true. And then there's the other cousin, the girl with a room full of antique dolls, the girl that shouldn't be there, the girl that died. And it does say on the back as well, warning, not for young readers, which I definitely agree with after reading this book. I will give you one warning, do not read this in the bath. There's a scene in this that happens while the girl is in the bath, and I read it in the bath even though I knew that there was a bath scene and terrified myself. There was also a scene that I read in here before I went to bed. Wasn't the best idea because I then struggled to sleep and was constantly thinking there was going to be something under the bed or under the covers. So just be mindful of that. If you don't normally like horror books but you are interested in this, don't read it at night, don't read it at bedtime, don't read it in the bath. Saying that I didn't really like horror books, I really liked this. This was another one that I struggled to put down. I think this one took me a little bit longer to read. I read it over Halloween, so I started it before and finished it about a week after Halloween, I think. As it said on the back of the book, Sophie is spending the summer with her cousins. Her cousin Rebecca died while they were living at the house, and this book focuses around some really tiny antique China dolls that are really creepy. As I said, I wasn't really sure if I was going to like this, but I did, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read for the book club was I Was Here by Gail Foreman. I'd actually already read this book when I received it, but I did read it again because I wanted it to be fresh in my mind when I did the Twitter takeover night and got to ask Gail some questions. I've already read a couple of Gail's books before. I've read If I Stay, which was made into a film a couple of years back, and I've also read Just One Day. I'll read the back for you again just so you know a little bit more about it. Cody and Meg were inseparable, best friends for life. They knew everything about each other, or Cody thought they did. But how well do you ever really know your best friend? And what do you do when they choose to leave you behind? Cody's best friend Meg leaves a note behind telling her friend and everyone that she has taken her own life. Cody then goes to pick up all of Meg's stuff from her university dormitory, and while she's there she starts to delve a little bit deeper into the reasons that Meg might have had for taking her own life, and tries to find out a little bit more about the person she thought she knew best in the world. This book is obviously full of tragedy because it involves death, but it's also got some aspects of romance in there that really helps to balance it out. My favourite character is definitely Ben. I love the way that he interacts with Cody throughout the story. And it's also nice to get some little hints of Meg through the story as well, because the book starts with her having taken her own life, so it's nice to hear a little bit more about her as well. Again, I'd read this book before, so I already knew that I liked it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was a Christmas book, and that was The 12 Days of Dash and Lily. I am aware that this is the second book in a series, but I found this one fine to read as a standalone. I didn't have to read the first one. This book was a really fun and enjoyable read, and just to tell you a little bit more about it, I will read the back. Dash and Lily have been dating for nearly a year, but when Lily's beloved grandfather falls ill, the repercussions take their toll on everyone. Even though they are still together, somehow the magic has gone out of their relationship, and it's clear that Lily has fallen out of love with life. Action must be taken. Dash teams up with Lily's brother and a host of their friends, determined to get Lily's groove back in time for Christmas. Most of all, I loved that this book was set in New York, because I spent Christmas in New York this year, so it was lovely to read this just before I went. It really got me in the Christmas spirit and really excited to be going into the city. It's a really simple and easy plot to follow, but it's so addictive. Again, this is another one of those books that I read in just a couple of sittings. I couldn't put it down. I loved Dash's character, but I also loved Boomer, his friend. He was just so funny, and I loved reading any of the scenes that had him in. This was a lovely book for the time of year that I read it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I want to talk to you about is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I just have to start by saying I really love this exclusive cover. I know it's not the cover that's the most important thing, but I really like this one. As always, I will start by telling you a little bit more about this one by reading you the back. The monster showed up after midnight, as they do. But it isn't the monster Connor's been expecting. It's not the one from his nightmare, the one he's had nearly every night since his mum started her treatments. This monster is something different, and it wants the most dangerous thing of all from Connor. It wants the truth. I really wanted to read this book before it came out as a film, because as most of you will already know by now, they have just made this into a film. I have seen it, and I've written a review for it on my blog, which I'll also leave in the description box below if you want to go and read what I thought of it. But I wanted to read it before, and the Zoella Book Club gave me the chance to read it first. This book definitely made me cry, as I know a lot of people have been saying this book made them cry. It is a sad story, but it's also a really lovely, magical story. I absolutely love the monster in this and sort of his purpose within the story. Connor is a young boy who is doing things that no little boy of his age should ever be expected to do. The stories that the monster tells in this story are so perfect, and I absolutely loved them in the film, the way that they showed them with all of the illustrations, but the way they are told in here is just as perfect. This book has got such brilliant morals to them as well. Like I say, with the stories that the monster tells, there's real meaning behind them. They're not just stories for the sake of being stories. I thoroughly recommend this book to absolutely everyone, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read from the book club was actually my first book of 2017, which was Lying About Last Summer by Sue Woolman. Last summer, Sky's sister died in a tragic accident. Now she's looking for an escape from reality. Her parents think that a holiday camp for bereaved teens might help her move on. At first, camp doesn't seem so bad, but when Sky starts receiving texts from someone claiming to be her dead sister, she fears the past is about to surface. The plot of this book is full of twists and turns, and I kept changing my mind all the time about who I thought was sending the text messages. I really felt for Sky in this book, because obviously it was a horrible situation to be in, but she was surrounded by people that had experienced something similar, so you think that it would start to heal her and make her feel better, but obviously everything takes a turn for the worse when she starts receiving these text messages. There's just so many people in this book that you suspect could be the person behind it, and you're constantly doubting yourself. I felt like Sherlock Holmes reading this book, like I wanted to try and work out what I thought was going on before it happened. For me, Skye is an unreliable narrator. I mentioned this to the author Sue Woolman when we did the Twitter takeover night. I believe she's an unreliable narrator because she's been through a lot. It's obviously a traumatic experience that she's been through. When these messages start coming through, you start doubting her as well as other characters in the book. Also, the idea of a bereavement camp I think is a really interesting idea, but I would never have thought that that would work as a book by putting a load of children together who have all lost someone, but it worked really well. This was another book that I read really quickly. It only took me a couple of days and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in the Zoella Book Club was The One We Fell in Love With by Page 2. This was probably the book that I was most excited to read in the book club. It's one that I'd seen on bookshelves in shops for ages and kept going to buy it, and I was like, no, do I really need any more books? You've got a whole bookshelf full of books and there's some on there that you haven't even read yet. You don't need to buy another one. So when I saw this was on it and I got sent it, it was perfect, just as I expected. I absolutely adored this book. This was definitely my favourite book in the whole book club. If you're wondering why there are page markers in here, it's because when I read the books in the Zoella Book Club, I don't do this with all of my books, it's just for these ones, because I like doing the Twitter takeover nights and I like to have questions ready for the authors when we get the chance to talk to them. I leave little post-it notes in the pages or in sections that relate to some of the questions that I want to ask, so then when I sit down to do the Twitter takeovers I go back through all of my post-it notes so that I can write in the questions on Twitter. The reason that this one and the next one that I will show you have still got the tabs in the side is because these ones haven't had the Twitter takeover night yet, and all the other ones have. So once I've asked the question and I've got an answer for it, I've been taking the tab out. So this one and the one that I will show you next have still got the tabs in. The Twitter takeover night will probably have already happened for this book by the time that this video goes up, so these tabs won't be in here anymore when you're watching this. Again, I will read you the back to tell you a little bit more about this book. Phoebe is caught between a rock and a hard place. Settle down and get married, or return to the French Alps to pursue her passion. Eliza is in love with someone who is no longer hers. In fact, he probably never was. And her dream of becoming a successful musician seems to be vanishing before her eyes. Rose is out of a job and out of a boyfriend. To make matters worse, she's been forced to move back in with her mother. But these very different girls have one thing in common: Angus, the one they fell in love with. This book has a really big plot twist. I'm obviously not going to be telling you about it on this video because I don't want to spoil it, but I cannot recommend this book highly enough. You need to read it. If you like sort of modern contemporary novels, this one is probably aimed slightly higher in age than some of the other ones that were in the book club. But I would relate this one to, if you read any of the books in the last Zoella Book Club, if you enjoyed Billy and Me or like that sort of style of book, then this is definitely a book for you. The other day I went onto the WHSmith Instagram page and they posted a picture of this book, and underneath it said something along the lines of, this book will have you shouting at it in frustration, like at the characters. I cannot tell you enough how true that is. It's definitely something I did on numerous occasions. I wanted literally to reach into this book and shake some of the characters in here for not realising things or not doing things or not saying things. It's a brilliant book. I can't tell you how much I love this book. I love every character in here. I love Phoebe, I love Eliza, I love Rose. Angus is a brilliant character. I also really like the character of Toby, who you meet a little bit later on in this book, but he's brilliant as well. I love the ending of this book as well. It was sort of the perfect ending to what you could have with what had happened in the story with all of the girls in it. But again, I feel like all I'm just going to stand here and do is tell you I love this, go and read it. But honestly, that's all I really can say about it, because I don't want to spoil the twist, I don't want to spoil the plot, I don't want to spoil what happens with the characters or how they know each other or anything like that. You just, please read it. If you like books like this, please read it. I think it's pretty obvious that I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, the final and 8th book in the Zoella Book Club was Finding Audrey. Now, Sophie Kinsella is probably most well known for the Shopaholic series of books she did, but this is a young adult novel, and I was really excited to read this actually, because although I don't think I've actually read any of the Shopaholic ones, which will come as a surprise to a lot of people who know me, I really wanted to read this one because I'd heard so much about the Shopaholic series, and how highly that is recommended to me over and over again. I really wanted to read this one as well. Audrey can't leave her house. She can't even take off her dark glasses inside the house. Then her brother's friend Linus stumbles into her life. With his smile and funny notes, he starts to entice Audrey out again. Well, Starbucks is a star. Laugh, dream and hope with Audrey as she learns that even when you feel like you've lost yourself, love can still find you. This book is about Audrey, who deals with anxiety and depression. I hadn't read any books that really dealt with any issues of mental illness or anything like that, but this was a really interesting read for me. This book deals with depression and anxiety in a really direct way, but it's also very empowering because it shows how she's dealing with it and how she's trying to bring herself out the other side and get on with her life. This book really shows some of the difficulties that someone suffering with depression or anxiety goes through in everyday life and how they try to deal with them. I loved the character of Audrey. I really love the way that she tells her story. I also really love the character of Linus, but I have to say that my favourite character in the whole book is Audrey's mum. As I said with the last book, this one still has the page markers in it because the Twitter takeover night for this one hasn't happened yet, so I look forward to the coming weeks where I can speak to Sophie Kinsella and ask her some of my questions. I really liked this book. It's another one that I definitely recommend you read. I read it in a couple of days. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So those were all 8 of the Zoella Book Club books. Thank you so much again to WHSmith for sending them to me. I've really enjoyed reading every single one of them, and who knows, fingers crossed in the future there might even be another round of the Zoella Book Club. I'm really sorry if this has been a long video, but if you have read any of the books that I have shown to you today, please let me know which ones you've read and if you liked them or not. I'd love to hear from you. I love talking to everyone about books that they've read. But thank you so much for watching. I will leave any links that I've mentioned in the description box below. I'll also leave links for where you can buy the books. If these exclusive covers are still available with WHSmith, I will leave them below. Thank you so much again for watching, guys, and I will see you soon. Bye!